This is AP Calculus AB. We are on worksheet 2-11, graph and table AP questions. All right, I'm seeing that there's a table. I'm immediately jumping down to the question. We're looking for K prime. Okay, I need to find what K is. So I'm looking for K. Okay, K is defined by a fraction. And of course, we don't want the denominator to be 0. And we need to take the derivative because that's K prime. So if I take the derivative of a fraction, that's invoking quotient rule. Once again, quotient rule is low d high minus high d low. That's all going to be divided by low, or low squared. All right, in this case, what is my low? My low is g, so I'm going to say g of that number. In this case, I'm going to be plugging, instead of saying x, I'm going to plug in 3 right away. So I'm going to say g of 3 times d high. The derivative of the top is f prime, so it's going to be f prime of 3. And then I'm going to copy down the minus sign. And then again, high is f, so I'll say f of 3. And then I'm going to be multiplying that by the derivative of low, so that's going to be g prime of 3. And that's all going to be divided by low. And low is g, so it's going to be g of 3, whatever that is, then I'm going to square it after the fact. Okay, so time to fill in what we have. And we're going to use a table now. So g of 3, I'm looking, g of 3 is right up here. G of 3 is 2. So I'm going to come down here and say, this is going to be 2 times, okay? Now I'm looking for f prime. F prime is 5. 2 times 5. Then I say minus, and then f of 3. So f of 3 looks like it's talking about this one right here, -1, -1. And then g of 3, or sorry, g prime of 3. G prime of 3 is -2, -2. And now this is all going to be divided by g of 3 squared. So we've already done g of 3 right here. That's the same value over here. So g of 3 is 2. And then I'm going to come down here and say that number squared. So I'm going to say 2 squared. 2 squared. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. When we simplify this, this is going to be 10. Okay, what sign do we have? We have a negative times a negative times a negative, which is just a negative. And then 1 times 2 is 2, and this is all going to be divided by 4. So this is going to be 8 over 4, and 8 over 4 is 2. Let me move this stuff out just a wee bit so I have some room here. This is going to be 8 divided by 4, which is 2, equal to 2. All right, correct answer here is C, 2. What about for number 2? This is almost the same exact question. This is again invoking that quotient rule. Blanked on it for a second. So quotient rule again is low d high minus high d low all over low. So I'll write down the formula here. I can copy paste the formula. That might be a little bit faster, wouldn't it? So I can say all of that thing. I'm going to copy you, and then you're going to come down here. So here's the cool thing. Because I know that these two values are going to be multiplied, I can just look for those right away on the table. This is the faster way to do this one. I don't want to do it the long way anymore. So low is g of x. D high is f prime. So I'm looking for g and f prime. So g and f prime are next to each other. These two values will be multiplied by each other. So I'm going to say this turns into an 8. This is 4 times 2 minus. And then the numbers that haven't been used will also get multiplied together. So I don't even know what high d low is, but I know that it's the other two. Therefore, the other two, other than 4 and 2, are the 3 and pi. So this has to be 3 times pi. And then whatever that first number was is always copied down here. And you kind of saw that in the last problem. 2 and 2, it's always in our formula. We have low and low. Therefore, if that number is 4, it will also be a 4. So just kind of shortcutting this really fast. And then what does that mean? If I simplify this really quickly, this is going to be 8 minus 3 pi all over 16. Is that an answer? That is not an answer. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Oh, and that is because I am not doing this problem correctly, maybe? I am not doing this problem correctly, and that's because I'm not getting the right answer, of course, but I messed this up. I should have had these in a different order. I didn't really care what order these were in because when you multiply, order doesn't matter. But in terms of taking that first problem, don't make my mistake. It's not the first one, it's whatever the low is. Remember that the low in this case is g of x. G of x is this one. So this number 2 is the one that's recopied down here, and that's why I'm getting the wrong answer. So I come down over here and say this is 2 squared, or 4. So 8 minus 3 pi over 4. 8 minus 3 pi over 4 is option A. All right, so I messed up in my shortcut, but I'm hoping you can still learn from me. What about number 3? Okay, so I'm looking for h prime of 2. I immediately jump to the question. I see like, okay, there's a graph. That's great. Let's see what the question is asking. H prime. Okay, I have to figure out what h is defined as. Oh, h is defined as this function times this function. Two functions being multiplied by each other is product rule. That is 1 d2 plus, not minus like quotient rule, plus 2d1. Okay, and 1 is f, so really what I have here is f of 2 times g prime of 2 plus 2, which is g of 2, times d1, which is f prime of 2. Okay, I just need to find what all 4 of these values are, multiply them and add them, right? So I need to find f of 2 and then g prime of 2. So f of 2 is the height of f at 2. So here's f, the height at 2 is 3. So I'm going to come over here and say this value is 3. And next I'm going to find g prime of 2. So g prime is the slope at 2. So what's the slope of this line at that one point? Well, the slope is going down to right 1, down to right 1. So down to right 1 is -2. Do that in the correct color though. -2 plus g of 2. Okay, so g of 2 is the height at 2 on g. So g's height at 2. This point right here has a height of positive 1. That is not a negative, it's a line. So it's just a positive 1. Actually, going to do that in the correct color. 1 times, and then f prime of 2. So f prime is the slope at 2. So the slope at 2, okay, at 2 right here, the slope is going right 2 up 1, right 2 up 1. That is a slope of 1/2. So I say times 1/2, and then I just multiply these together. Okay, so I have a -6 plus 1/2. So I need like denominators, so I can say that this is the same thing as -12/2 plus 1/2, which is -11/2, which is option B, -11/2. All right, moving on to the back. We have 4, 5, and 6, and then we're out of here. All right, number 4. All right, I'm noticing that I'm looking for g prime of 2. G prime, how do we define g? G is defined by this function, so I need to take the quotient rule of this. So just as a way to, I just copy paste this will be a little bit faster. Here we go. I'm going to grab quotient rule, which we have all memorized. Grab u, copy u, come over here and paste you. Okay, so here's our formula. And low, in this case, I have to be really careful. Low is f of x, and since x is 2, I'm going to say 2 for everything. And then d high, so I'm going to take the derivative of x squared plus 1, which is 2x. And instead of saying 2x, I'm going to say 2 times the value of x, which is 2. I'm doing x and plugging it in at the same time. So minus, okay, high. High is just the x squared plus 1, so it's going to be 2 squared plus 1. And be careful, all of that needs to be in parentheses. That's a very common mistake that I see students making. They forget to keep all of that high in the parentheses. And I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of low. So the derivative of the low is f prime. F prime is the derivative of low, so I'll say f prime of 2. F prime of 2. And then don't forget, this is all over low, therefore f of 2 quantity squared. All right, we have everything ready to go. Let's figure out what they are. Okay, f of 2. That means I have to go to the graph and say the height at 2. So the height at 2 is 3. Come over here and say this is now 3 times, okay, 2 times 2 is 4, so 3 times 4 minus, okay, over here I have 2 squared, which is 4, plus 1 is 5, so it's going to be 5 times, okay, f prime of 2 is the slope at 2. The slope at 2, what is the slope at that point? Well, I'm going right 1 up 4, or you can say right 1 up 4, therefore it's a slope of 4. It's all going to be divided by f of 2. Okay, this number and this number are the same, so this number should be still 3, and that number is squared. All right, let's simplify this a little bit. 3 times 4 is 12 minus 20 all over 9, and that's going to be -8 over 9. -8 over 9 is option A. Moving on to number 5. All right, I'm immediately seeing there's a graph. I'm jumping to the question, h prime. How is h defined? H is defined by these two things being multiplied together. That is product rule. Once again, product rule is 1 times d2 plus 2 times d1. Okay, so what is 1? 1 is e to the power of x. So I say e to the power of, instead of x, I'm going to say -1. Times d2. The derivative of 2 is the derivative of gx. So I'll say g prime. G prime, and then we'll plug in -1. Plus 2 is just g, and I'll still say -1, times the derivative of 1. So the derivative of e to the power of x is just e to the power of x. Instead of saying e to the power of x, it's e to the power of -1. All right. I think I'm ready to do this problem. What is g? I know e to the power of -1 is just 1 over e, so I can put that in the denominator. But what about this g prime of -1? That's the slope of g at -1. Well, g, okay, I'm seeing that there's our slope. Oh, okay, and it gave me some points. So in order to find the slope of this line, I'm going right 1, this whole distance here is 1. I'm going down 1, so from here I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going down 6. So the slope here is -6, and I can say that this is -6 for the slope. And then because I have e to the power of -1, that just means it flips and it becomes e to the power of +1, or just over e. Okay, plus. Now I need to find g of -1, aka the height at -1. Well, the height at -1 is this y coordinate right here, which happens to be 3. And then that's all over e as well, because this e to the power of -1 flips to the denominator, becomes positive for our power. And I have like denominators, which means I can just add. -6 plus 3 is a -3. I'm looking for -3 over e, and that is correct option B. All right. Almost done. Last problem, number 6. We got multiple graphs going on here, and it's asking for h prime of 6. I saw the graph, I kind of skipped it looking at the question. The question is defined by this h over here, which is product rule. Let's do product rule. 1 d2 plus 2 d1. And what is 1 in this case? 1 is f, so this is going to be f of, our number is 6, times d2, so that's going to be g prime of 6, plus 2. 2 is g, so g of 6. And then that's multiplied by d1, which is f prime of the 6. Okay, we got to find all these values. F of 6 is the height at 6. At 6, I have a height on f of 2. So I'm going to come over here and say this is 2. Oops, this is going to be 2. I'll do this in purple though. There we go. 2 times, okay, g prime of 6 is the slope at 6. So at 6, the slope is going right 2 down 1. Therefore, it's -1/2, plus, then g of 6. G of 6 is the height at 6. At 6, I have a height of g over here at 4. So this is going to be 4 times f prime of 6. F prime of 6 is the slope at 6. Slope at 6 on this point, I'm going down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1 is a slope of -2. I have all my numbers. I just need to do some number crunching. This first number is going to be -1 plus -8. -1 plus -8 is a -9. Therefore, the correct answer here is A. That does conclude our worksheet 2-11 for AP Calculus AB. There's the back side. There's the front side. Thank you for watching.